Hey, welcome to part 2 of our series of investing in real estate with little to no money. This week we are talking about lease options. A lease option is where you work out a predetermined price with a landlord. So you're renting the house and you work out a deal with the landlord that sounds something like this. It's like, hey, I'll pay you $500,000 for this home, but I'm gonna rent it for 2 years, and this premium that I pay above rent is gonna go towards the down payment, and then we will execute it at some predetermined price at some predetermined point in the future. So a few things that you have to consider when it comes to lease options. So in some cases, the landlords might want a little bit of money up front. So you might say, hey, landlord, I've got, $3,000 or $4,000, $5,000 in my savings account. I'll throw you that plus $500 above market rent per month for the next 2 years. So $500 a month for a year, that's $6,000. If you do that for 2 years, that's $12,000. And if you throw them, $5,000 up front, now I have $17,000 towards this down payment of, let's say a $500,000 place. So now you have 3% down, which is a doable financing structure. Now, a few things that you have to consider is when we are purchasing properties at some price today, we have no idea what the market's going to do in the future. So if you and the landlord come up with this option to buy it for $500,000 in 2 years, and the market in the house is worth $525,000, and you have an option at $500,000, well, that's great because you've earned $25,000 in equity while you've been sitting there paying rent. So that's a solid turnout. If the opposite is true and it goes down to $475,000 and you have an option for $500,000, well, now you have two choices: to execute the option at $500,000 and overpay $25,000 for this property, or decline to execute your option, and then the landlord walks away with your, the money that you paid up front and the premium that you paid in rent, that $17,000 that we came up with in our example. So you just have to make sure that, you have an idea, an understanding of what the property value is today and a reasonable forecast for what it might do in the future. Now, none of us can predict these things perfectly, but when you're structuring these deals, you have to at least try to understand what the market value is today and try to forecast it in the future so that you can understand, all of the potential risk and reward to you. Another thing to consider is, if you're paying a landlord, let's say $5,000 up front and a $500 a month premium above market rents for a couple years, and in order to save the $17,000 towards the down payment, another thing to consider is maybe we just want to put that $5,000 and the $500 a month in a savings account and come up with our own down payment and have an option of purchasing, any property that's on the market at market value of that day. So the question is why would people do this lease option? Why would people try to predict? Well, there's a few different reasons. In some cases, we've had tenants in a property that's like, I love this house, I've been renting it for years, I want to buy it from the landlord, and the landlord says, hey, I'm not going to be ready for personal reasons, personal financial reasons. I'm not going to be ready to sell the home for 2 years, but I'll agree to a predetermined price now and I'll sell it to you in 2 years. So in some cases, you're already in a home that you love, so you want to buy that home specifically. Another reason is that maybe you are getting your financial house in order, so you can't afford to purchase today, but you want to negotiate something today. There's a variety of reasons why someone might execute a lease option, but also keep in mind that if you're giving that money to the landlord to save for you, consider saving it for yourself and just going, the normal down payment route. So when it comes to lease options, you just also want to make sure that the contract for the lease option, for the option to purchase, is ironclad. Review it with your attorney, make sure that the terms and conditions in there, that you understand them, that they're beneficial to you, and it's not going to leave you in a lurch. And never, ever, ever do these things on a handshake deal. I've had so many people do real estate deals on a handshake, and then they get screwed over and they have no recourse because nothing's on paper. So make sure that the lease option contract is ironclad. Also make sure that you are talking to a real estate agent that can walk you through what the what the market value is today and what we think the market is going to do in the future. Because even though no one can predict it perfectly, there are some methods that we can use to forecast with some accuracy, and even though it'll never be perfect, we need to have some understanding or at least some forecast of what it's going to do in the future so that we can make sound decisions, understand our risk reward, and make the best decision that works for us with your lease option.